Welcome. Thank you for coming today. The following presentation will provide you with a short history of this congregation and our historic building. The first meetings of the group that later became the First Congregational Church of Waukesha were held in 1837 at the home of Nathaniel Walton at a site which is now on College Avenue. Later in 1837, the services moved to the home of Robert Love at a site which is now on West Avenue in what was then called Prairieville. Meetings were held in a frame addition to the house. One of the church's founding members later recalled that Robert Love's house was the best house between Milwaukee and the Rock River. At that time, there wasn't a nearby bridge across the Fox River, and many who attended services either forded the river or used a ferry made of Indian canoes. When this church, made up of 15 men and women, was formed on January 20th, 1838, the territory, Wisconsin, was just starting to attract immigrants from the eastern U.S. Just to set the context, in 1838, Wisconsin was not a state, the township had not yet been organized, and as far as we know, no other associations, civil, social, or religious, had been formed in the area. What is now Waukesha was a small cluster of houses, a school, and a few other buildings. By 1840, the congregation had scraped together enough money to build a church. The first regular meeting house of this church stood in what is now Cutler Park, in front of the current site of the Waukesha Public Library. During the early years of the church, revival meetings featuring traveling preachers were popular, and the venues where they were held were typically packed. First Congregational Church hosted a number of these meetings during the 1840s. The revival meetings were one of the few forms of entertainment that were sanctioned by the church. Most of the earlier members were from Eastern New York and New England, and they brought with them strict notions of religious obligations. According to historical records, a number of members were actually put on trial by the church from the early 1840s through 1855 for offenses such as not observing the Sabbath, drinking intoxicating beverages, profanity, dancing, card playing, and attending circuses and theaters. Even going to the post office on Sunday was forbidden. Sleeping in on Sunday mornings was not an option in the mid-1800s. Members confined themselves in the dock for not attending Sunday services or not taking communion. As time went on, interest in revival meetings was displaced by a new focus on the question of slavery. In 1845, the congregation passed a series of resolutions pronouncing slavery, in the words of John Wesley, the sum of all villainies, and they refused to receive to the pulpit, communion, or fellowship anyone who, quote, practices, upholds, or justifies this gross system of iniquity. The resolution caused a lot of division. Some members left the church, and some were excommunicated. It was reported that many of the dissenters became members of other churches in the area. The congregation was often accused of taking a radical stand on slavery. The church had a rocky start financially. Many of the early ministers were only short-term because the congregation did not have enough money to offer them long-term appointments. The so-called radical stand on slavery caused some members to leave. But in 1864, the church put together enough money to buy this lot on East Broadway with the intent of building a new church building. The new church building was dedicated on December 26, 1867, in the aftermath of the Civil War. During that same year, the records show that the outgoing minister, Reverend Foote, and his wife gave a communion service in memory of their son, Horatio, who died as a POW in the notorious Andersonville prison in Georgia during the Civil War. This photo shows the sanctuary around 1867. Note that it is oriented east to west, with the chancel in what is now our fellowship hall. A new pipe organ was purchased in 1872. This is a photo of the outside of the church as it looked in the 1870s through the end of the 19th century. In an 1899 remodeling, the sanctuary was reconfigured in approximately the same form that you see today. The chancel was moved to the north side of the church, the alcove in the back was added, and the stained glass windows were installed. The beautiful 1899 windows located in the back of our sanctuary commemorate early ministers and members of the congregation. This photo was taken in 1918 at the end of World War I. Note that the chancel area was open at that time. In this 1920s photo, you can see three arches dividing off the chancel that were not present in the World War I era photos. Red brick facing was added to the building post-World War I, which remains to this day. The Great Depression forced the congregation to cut the pastor's salary, take out a loan, and sell off the corner lot where the gas station now stands. While World War II brought an end to the Depression, it also took the lives of four young men from the congregation: Jack Breeze, Franklin Green, Gordon Haynes, and William Pierce. They are commemorated with plaques in the narthex and outside in a small garden area. In this photo from 1930s, the front arches remain. This Christmas photo from 1955 shows three arches opening to the narthex on the west side of the sanctuary. The arches on the west wall were closed off by doors and the addition of stained glass windows in 1967, and then opened up again in the 2019 remodeling. The present education wing was added in the early 1960s at a cost of about $150,000 to accommodate the post-war baby boom. This photo shows the laying of the education wing cornerstone in January 1961. About the same time, the congregation voted to become part of the United Church of Christ, a merger of the Congregational Church and the Evangelical and Reformed Church. The autonomy of the congregation in church matters continues to be a hallmark of the United Church of Christ, extending back to the Puritan Reformation. According to the United Church of Christ Constitution, each local church is autonomous, and none of its functions or governance can be modified by the General Synod, associations, or conferences. The sculpture on the east wall of the Fellowship Hall was created by the late Lydia Runkle, a member of our congregation, art faculty at Cale University, and a peace activist. In 1975, the building was designated as a Wisconsin Registered Landmark. We welcome you to view the most recent refurbishing of this historic building. We sought to update the space for our current needs, while at the same time retaining the historic character of the building. The decorative organ pipes were removed from the chancel and replaced with a new screen. The west wall was again opened up so the outer stained glass windows can be viewed from the sanctuary. Thank you for coming today. We hope you enjoy our historic church building. Our congregation's mission statement is, "We are an inclusive Christian faith community, spiritually nurturing and extending ministry to all." Open and affirming is the United Church of Christ's designation for congregations which make a public covenant of welcome into their full life and ministry persons of all sexual orientations, gender identities, and gender expressions. After some study and discussion, the church completed this affirmation process in 2015 to become an O&A congregation. We welcome persons of every race, ethnicity, gender identity and expression, sexual orientation, mental and physical ability, age, faith background, economic situation, and family structure to join in the full life and ministry of this church. First Congregational United Church of Christ has been a part of the Waukesha community for more than 180 years. The challenge remains to make this faith our own. God is still speaking in this time and in this place. Thank you for coming today. Wherever you are on your faith journey, you are welcome here.